Welcome back to another beautiful day in the land of music. My name is Douglas, and in today's video, we're gonna take an in-depth look at the maudio Hammer 88 Pro. Now, this is my absolute favorite controller that I've played so far in my over 22 years of playing. And as I build my home studio down here, this is gonna be the centerpiece of my studio desk because it not only has great feeling graded hammer action keys, but it also has all the controls I need to be able to control Pro Tools, which is the DAW that I use anytime I record. So let's jump into this video. I'm gonna break this up into 3 different parts. The first part, we're gonna talk about the look and the feel of the controller. We're gonna talk about the controls, the panel layout, how everything feels, and then we'll also talk about what it comes with for connections on the back of the controller. The second part, we'll talk about what comes with the controller in terms of software and virtual instruments. So it comes with some plugins, it comes with some light versions of some of the DAWs out there. So we'll talk through some of the nuances there. And then last, we'll talk about some of the capabilities around customizing and configuring the controls. And I won't go in depth on how to program all the controls, but I will give you an idea of what the capabilities are and what you can do with the different controls with the preset editor on the computer. Let's jump right into it and talk about the look and the feel. So as we feel this keyboard down, we've got 2 plastic end caps over here that say maudio on them, stamped in the end caps. And then the whole chassis from the top control panel all the way down the bottom and up front around the keys is all metal. And then the keys themselves feel really good. It's probably the best hammer action I've played. It feels very similar to what you'd find in an actual grand piano. Not too heavy, not too light. And as I've been playing this over the past few weeks, I've really fallen in love with this action. I'm really able to get the dynamics that I want, both in synth sounds, electric piano, those sorts of things, but it's heavy enough for me to play actual piano pieces as well. So I think you're gonna love this keyboard. It is 88 keys, graded hammer action. So what that means is it's heavier down low, and then as you get into the higher registers, the action gets lighter, just like you'd find in an actual grand piano. This is really cool. You don't find this in a lot of controllers. You find it in some of the digital pianos out there, but not in the controllers, especially in this price range. These keys also have aftertouch. So if you don't know what aftertouch is, it's something that you can assign a parameter to, like maybe a filter on a synth pad sound. You could assign different things to the aftertouch through your virtual instrument. And then when you press the key, you can press it a little further. You press the key down and then you can press it a little further. There's a little springy action there. That's the aftertouch, and it allows you to assign that control. So maybe you just play an F chord here, and then we wanna kind of bring that pad sound in. So we can assign, maybe it's the volume to the aftertouch, and that pad fades in as we press down on those keys. So you can assign aftertouch to these keys, really cool. Not a lot of 88 key controllers allow you to have aftertouch along with the graded hammer action. So it's kind of in its own in terms of that functionality. Over here on the left, we have a pitch and a modulation wheel. These have a nice rubbery feel to them. They're lit up in this nice red color. And then above those, we have the octave down and up buttons. You press both of them together, it resets your octave back to 0. Now on the front panel here, we have our faders, we have our general main screen and transport controls, and then on the right-hand side, we have our knobs, our pads, and then these 2 buttons here on the right, which I'll talk about in a second. So let's jump over here and just talk about the buttons themselves. So the buttons, they are clicky, they're a plastic button, but because this is such a solid controller, I think it's over 40 pounds, somewhere in the ballpark of 40 to 50 pounds. It's a heavy controller. And even though these are plastic and you still get that clicky sound, I can't complain too much, they still feel pretty solid. Let's talk about the faders for a second. So you have 9 faders. The first 8 here generally correspond with tracks 1 through 8, and then if you change banks, then it would be 9 through 16, etc. So you have 4 banks of faders, knobs, pads. But the 9th fader here would be your main fader, and this is usually assigned to maybe the main volume of a virtual instrument, something like that. Faders 1 through 8 are gonna be the most useful because those are gonna be tied to your tracks. Then we've got the knobs over here on the right. Same story here, there's 8 knobs. These are gonna correspond with the tracks in your DAW for the pans. And nice thing in Pro Tools, if you're using a stereo track with a left and a right pan, by default, the knob is going to control the left pan knob. But you can just press the shift button and then you can control the right hand pan knob. Press shift, move back. So very quickly allows you to jump between those two stereo pan knobs per track. Then we've got our 16 pads down here. And remember, we also have 4 banks. So there's a total of 64 programmable pads here. They are lit up. You'd get 2 colors, one without it being pressed, and then a color as you press it. So you'll notice this one's on light blue. When I press it, it goes red. So you can set those within, and I'll show you how to get to that setting in the controller itself. But you can also set that up with preset editor that comes with this controller on the computer. In the center here, we have our transport controls, play, stop, arm the track for record, our loop control, back and forward, so we can move the transport control in our DAW. And then we have the bank back and forward buttons, so we can move between banks 1 through 8, 9 through 16, etc. And then if you'll notice on the buttons, they've got labels above and labels below. Anytime you have a label below, you have to hold the shift button to get to that label. So maybe you want to edit the arpeggiation settings. We hold shift, press the ARP button, and we get to the ARP settings. We can go back by pressing the back button all the way back to the main screen. Our knob right here is a rotary encoder for selecting the different settings on the controller, and then push down to select that setting. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Up here on our bank back and forward, we have lock ARP knobs and lock DAW pads. So you'll see underneath these first 4 knobs, we have the arpeggiator settings, type, octave, gate, and swing. So what we can do is if we're playing and we don't want to have to go into the menu of the arpeggiator and change those settings using both our hands, we can hold shift and we can lock the ARP knobs. And then as we're playing, we can just go up here, twist these knobs to change the various parameters of the arpeggiator without having to go into a menu to do that. We can go back, we can hold shift, lock ARP knobs to turn that off. And then the same applies for the lock DAW pads. So you see here we have DAW knob control and DAW shortcuts. So if we hold shift and lock DAW pads, we no longer have to hold shift to get to these various functions. So now if I'm in a recording session and I want to save or I want to go into the detailed MIDI view, I don't have to hold shift and press save. I can just hit save, quantize, view, undo, all without holding shift. To turn that off again, we can hold shift, lock DAW pads, boom, we're good to go. We also have our note repeat and our latch right here. So if I hold shift and press that button, now anytime I press a pad, you'll notice that it stays lit up, meaning it's gonna hold, it's gonna latch, which holds that note until I either press another note or turn latch off. So over here in the center, we have our screen. This is a 3-line screen, and it also has a bar at the bottom that shows us a visual of our value along with the numeric number there. So of my knob, I can see exactly what value my knob's at. Let's maybe the pad velocity, I can see right there. Aftertouch as well. You can see with the aftertouch what the value is there. So pretty handy and straightforward as we jump into the edit menus. It basically walks you through the various configurations within the controller. Now above the screen, we have our DAW, preset, and our tempo buttons. So the DAW button allows you to control your DAW with the faders, knobs, various controls on the controller. Preset mode allows you to control virtual instruments or build your own custom preset for maybe Cakewalk or another DAW that doesn't have a preset built into the controller. You can build your own either with the preset editor that comes with this for the computer or by modifying the CC notes and things like that that you can modify right within the controller on the screen. So let's go to DAW and hold shift and press the DAW button, which is going to go and allow us to choose the MIDI channel that our DAW is communicating with, along with the messages that it's sending. So we've got Mackie, HUI, Mackie, and CC. So we can set that up right here. We can also hold, so you see that the label on the top has a single tap for DAW and then a hold for select. So if we hold this DAW button, now we have a selection between the presets for the DAWs that come with the controller. So maudio has provided various configurations of the controls for a lot of your popular DAWs. We have Pro Tools, we have MPC Beats, Ableton Live, Studio One, Reason, Cubase, Logic, Bitwig, GarageBand, Reaper, FL Studio, and then there's a user setting. So you could go into the preset editor and you could build your own custom DAW preset, send that over to the user DAW setting, and that would allow you to customize the controls for whichever DAW you're using. I use Pro Tools, so I'm gonna go back and to select it, you push down on the rotary encoder. If we go to preset mode, again, this is to control either virtual instruments, or you could build a custom preset to control basically anything you want. Let's hold on this preset button. And these are the presets that come built into the controller from maudio. We have MPC PI, Hybrid, Mini Grand, Velvet, Expand 2, Hybrid, Boom, DB33, and then we have a bunch of custom presets here. So again, they give you the ability to build your own presets using the preset editor, or I could go into one of these. I could change the notes that the pads are sending, the velocity, ranges, what the knobs do, all of that, and save that as a custom preset here in the controller. So to the right of the preset button, we have our tempo control. So we can hold on that and you see that we've got our tempo that we can adjust. And the light blinks based upon the tempo that we have set. Unfortunately, right now, there's not a way to turn the blinky light off. Hopefully that comes in a future firmware update because sometimes that blinky light gets a little annoying. We go here, we can also tap the tempo by just tapping on this tempo button. Now down below the faders, we have a series of buttons. In preset mode, this controls the arpeggiator, chord mode, scale mode, the time signatures. And then if we're in DAW mode, these are actually controlling whether you mark a track for record, select it, mute it, solo it, and you can change that using this mode button here. So we can cycle through, maybe we want to use these to mute. We can mute tracks by selecting the button underneath the corresponding fader. Really cool, allows you to do a lot with your DAW without having to reach for a mouse, which is great, and I've found this works perfectly with Pro Tools. I have not found a controller that has as tight integration with Pro Tools as this does. So if Pro Tools is your DAW, this or the Oxygen Pro, it's definitely your controller. Over here on the very right-hand side, we have these forward and back soft buttons. Now these are soft, rubbery buttons, and in Pro Tools, they control whether you're in mix view or edit view. So really quick to swap between them. Depending on your DAW, they're gonna do different things, but I find this to be a great feature in Pro Tools because I'm constantly switching between those two views as I'm recording or mixing a project. Now on the back panel, we have the power, we have USB, which can also power the controller. That's actually what I'm using right now to power the controller. It's just the USB cable to the computer. We have sustain pedal input, we have an expression pedal, and then two other foot switch style pedals. So if you've got a 3-pedal board for playing piano, you can plug all of those into this controller. So 4 pedal inputs, which is awesome. It also has the traditional 5-pin MIDI in and out, so you can connect this to an external keyboard or a sound module and control the sounds there as well. So over here on the computer, I've pulled up the maudio website, and let me scroll down here and just talk about what's included for software and virtual instruments. So you get Pro Tools First maudio Edition, you get MPC Beats, and then you get Ableton Live Lite. These are the 3 DAWs that come with this controller. You can try all 3 of them out, see what you like better. The only one that's a full version is MPC Beats. The other 2 are light versions of the paid versions of those software. We've got a few virtual instruments that come with this. These first 3 can be used in a DAW or standalone. So Hybrid 3, which is a synth engine. You have Velvet, which is an electric piano, and then Mini Grand, which is a grand piano plugin. Now down here, it also comes with Vacuum, which is another synth style plugin, Boom, which is a drum plugin, and DB33, which is a tone wheel organ. These 3 down here only come when you download Pro Tools, and you'll also get a 4th one that's not mentioned here, which is Expand 2, which is a variety of different instruments that you can play using that plugin. You can do some layering and some cool things like that in there as well. But again, those 4 only come when you download Pro Tools. So after you register the Hammer 88 Pro, you're gonna get access to the maudio software manager. In here, you can download the instruments, you get the activation codes, you can download the different apps, the Ableton Live Lite, Pro Tools, MPC Beats. You can download the preset editor, and if you don't see that, go up to this gear icon and check Show Advanced Software. You also get access to the MPC sound packs to use with MPC Beats, and then you get the plugin only. So if you didn't want to download the standalones, you could download these 3 as just plugin onlys. You can click the I to view more information about any of these plugins or software. And then over here, you can see if you haven't downloaded it yet, it's going to say download or get. And then once you've downloaded and installed it, you're gonna have an open button that you can go and open that up, or you can find it in your start menu. Let's open up the preset editor and I'll show you that real quick before we jump back over to the controller and talk about how to configure the controls right from the controller without using any sort of software-based preset editor. So this is the preset editor. We have our preset mode, DAW mode, and then some of the global settings. You can modify all these from this nice UI here. And then up in the file menu, you can send that over to the Hammer 88 Pro. You can also retrieve whatever's currently set on the controller, and that'll update whatever's here. And so we've got RAM, which is when you first turn the controller on, and then we could also retrieve the different presets. You'll see something a little different under DAW mode. When you go to retrieve, it retrieves whatever current DAW preset is pulled up on the controller. And then under the global menu, retrieving just grabs a fresh set of the parameters, and then you could change those, maybe change your keyboard sensitivity, the transpose, anything like that, and then send that back over to the controller. The nice thing with DAW and preset mode as well is you can save the presets to your computer to either back up what's there before you modify it, or to save your own custom presets and load them into the controller as you need them. So let's jump back over to the controller, and I want to take just a minute to walk you through how to configure the controls right from the controller without having to jump to the computer to make your own custom presets. So let's say we want to go in and we want to modify the MIDI channel that our pads are being sent on. Now to do that, there's this global menu here, and to get to that, hold Shift and press the global menu. There's a lot of different controls within this menu, but we're just gonna make note that our global MIDI channel is 1. So that means the pads and the keys are gonna be sending notes out on MIDI channel 1. Now, maybe we wanna change our pads to send out on MIDI channel 10. So I'm gonna go over to preset mode, and let's hold on this and go to one of the user presets. So we're gonna scroll over here and we'll go to preset 9 and we'll select that. That way we don't mess up any of the presets that already come with the controller. And then we're gonna hold Shift and press that preset button again, which is gonna go into the edit view. Now, to edit any of the controls, all you have to do is either move the control, and you'll notice the screen updated to slider 1. And then I have my different settings for slider 1. Let's say I wanna do knob 1, you'll see it updates. But let's say, same scenario, we wanna change our pads to send on MIDI channel 10. Right now, they're set to channel global. So back in our global menu, you saw our global MIDI channel was 1. Well, instead, we're gonna press down on the rotary encoder, and we're gonna select MIDI channel 10. To select that, press down again. So now this pad is sending out on MIDI channel 10. We can do that same thing with all the other pads. Let's see what else we have for settings on this pad. We have color 1, which is the color without it being pressed. Maybe we wanna go change that to either off, or we could change that to violet. I'm gonna select that. We're gonna move over to color 2, which is when you press it. We're gonna change that to cyan. So now if we were to go back, we were to tap this, violet first. When we tap it, cyan. Love it. Let's go back here and edit this again. On the very last setting, we have the mode. So right now, this is set to send a MIDI note. We could change this to a CC message, CC cycle, CC in DC, program cycle. So let's take program, for instance. You could send a program number. So when you tap this pad, it changes the program on whichever virtual instrument you've got pulled up. We have program cycle, PG in DC, and zone. I'll be putting a video out at some point talking about how to use zones on the maudio Oxygen Pro and the Hammer 88 Pro. But for now, we're gonna leave it at note. To select the actual parameter for any of these, scroll to it, and then press down, which is going to give you the ability to set the note, whether latch is on or off, and then the velocity on the low and the high end. So that's just a little snippet into how you can set up the controls on the Hammer 88 Pro. You can do that to any of the programmable controls just by being in the edit menu and moving that control. Just take a look, play around with what parameters are there to edit. And then again, you can use the preset editor on the computer to do all of this through that UI. It's probably gonna be faster to do it there and just send it over to the Hammer 88 Pro. So I hope this was helpful for you. I know I packed a lot into this video. I hope it was helpful. If you're looking to buy the Hammer 88 Pro, you wanna know what it's capable of, or you already own the Hammer 88 Pro and you're just trying to expand your knowledge, get to know the controller a little bit better, welcome to the club. If you've got questions, throw them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, stay inspired, and keep making that music.